Welcome to Small Biz Life, episode 37, Mastermind Groups and Accountability Partners.
Does this sound familiar?
Oh my God, I have so much to do today.
Don't forget to breathe.
But I have almost 400 emails in my inbox and 30 phone calls to make.
Have you looked into getting a virtual assistant yet?
Oh, and I need to schedule all my social media posts.
Did you drink anything today?
I had coffee.
Did you eat today?
Did I mention coffee's a bean?
This is Small Biz Life.
Welcome to Small Biz Life. If this is your first time with us, welcome to the show. My name is Kristen Ingram.
And I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And we are married small business owners who are helping you walk through this journey of being a small biz owner or a startup business, solopreneur who's trying to do everything on their own. And we're helping walk through that journey with you.
Yes. It's one of those journeys where even though your business might be on its own, it can never truly be alone.
That's right. And that's why this week we're going to talk about mastermind groups and accountability partners, because I think that this is probably one of the most important tools to put into your small business arsenal.
Yes. And I want to start off talking a bit about what they're not. They are not something strictly to kick your butt and to make you go, go, go. I mean, if you want someone to kick your butt and go, 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 send us $20. I'll send you some pre-recorded drill sergeant voice yelling at you. That's going to make you go, 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 and it will kick your butt. That's not what you're really looking for. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're looking for in an accountability partner?
Okay, so an accountability partner is someone that is going to help you achieve your goals and act as a check for you. So sometimes the job of an accountability partner is just to sit there and go, you know what? You need to get some sleep.
Yeah.
You need to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
You're going too hard.
Yeah.
And so what you want to look for in an accountability partner is someone who's going to keep you in check.
Yeah. Because one of the things that have been found in countless studies and in most people who work in industries where there are sometimes late nights trying to hit deadlines, what they find is the later you stay up and push yourself night after night after night, the less quality work you receive.
Exactly. I worked with people just to be their accountability partner to make sure they wake up at the time they want to wake up at, or that they're doing a certain number of tasks during the day, or that they're getting a particular task done during the day. So accountability partners, it's a lot of give and take, and you are as responsible to them as they are to you.
Yeah.
And so this takes a lot of commitment to be an accountability partner with someone, because not only are you managing your stuff, but you've also got to keep an eye on their stuff. Mm-hmm. And so accountability partners have a purpose.
Yeah.
But I'm a bigger fan of the mastermind.
Yes.
Because with a mastermind group, it's not all on you to make sure that the other person gets done what they need to get done.
And there are two types of groups that are now being called mastermind groups. And one used to be called either a coaching group or a mentoring group. And that's where you usually pay someone who's very experienced in where you want to go, and you get to a group where they lead a mastermind-like activities to help further you towards your business goals. And those are good, but that's not specifically what we're talking about here. A real mastermind group are a bunch of individuals who are peers. Some might be a little bit more advanced than other ones, and they usually will sort of have a bunch of different areas of expertise within the businesses each of them do. So you might have a person who's really good at marketing, maybe a good technology person, maybe a good person for the actual business process. And the exact business process would probably vary a little bit from business to business anyway.
Yeah. So I think if your goals are personal goals, then I think an accountability partner works really well. But I think if you're trying to grow a business, I think a mastermind works much better.
Yeah.
So, as Jeff said, there are two different types of masterminds. They're the ones that you pay for, where generally you're working with like a guru who is going to help guide you through the process. The masterminds that I have been a part of have all been organic masterminds. They've been non-paid. And it was a group of people coming together who were at different stages of their business, but wanted to grow and have some accountability and help other people.
Yeah.
I think that the best way to kind of think of a mastermind group is you are the board of directors for each other's businesses.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, I think.
And so that's why you really want to look for a group of people that is diverse. I'm not a big fan of having a mastermind group full of people in the same industry, because then you're not getting that varied expertise. The other thing too is that if you're working with people that are all in the same industry, you might actually be competing with each other.
Yeah.
Because more and more companies are national businesses. So unless you're a local storefront type business and you want to have a mastermind with other businesses in your industry, so say you're like a florist or you're a salon and you want to work with other florists or salons around the country, I think that could work really well.
Yeah.
But if you're on a national scale, you probably have more in common with other businesses on a national scale than you do with, some of like the local businesses that are in the same industry as you.
I agree with that. I think a little bit when it comes to more traditional companies where you're selling products and services. However, I don't think that's an absolute, because once again, there has to be understanding that the avatars are never going to line up exactly. And you might even be able to build a relationship with someone in your industry where they're looking for a slight variation of the kind of customer you are. And so you're actually feeding customers and probably profiting, you should, off of that exchange between each other.
Right. But if you're a national business that's selling virus removal software,
another business doing that would be very difficult. Yeah, it would be a conflict of interest. Now, one area where I think it helps to have people in your own industry is the creative arts. Writers understand problems writers have. The one flaw there is if they're all strictly focused on the writing side of it, they typically miss the business side. And that's one of the problems of over-centralization into one industry, no matter what industry it is. It breeds groupthink. And essentially people will have the same kinds of ideas that have been kind of working for them, but not really working for them. And you usually need ideas from, the outside of the box type of ideas that will actually maybe give you a big breakthrough.
Yeah, I think that that's really important. And I think that when you're looking for people to become part of your mastermind group, you want to find people that are going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And sometimes painfully honest with you.
Because sometimes they will feel like that drill sergeant yelling at you because they feel you're slacking off and it's your turn to have your ideas reviewed and everyone's going after you. They should err on the side of going after you, not all of the time, but sometimes when you're in that hot seat of a mastermind, people should err on the side of going after you, not so much because you're wrong, but to make sure you've really thought out your idea.
Yeah. And, in some of the masterminds I've been in, we've had some meetings where people have walked away pretty pissed off. And you think, oh my God, that person's going to leave the group because we were pretty hard on them. But I think, the thing that I try to do is I always try to say, okay, I'm going to tell you this because I care about you and I care about your business.
Yeah.
And then I make the comments. But, I've never seen someone, at least in my experience, they may have left angry, but then once they reflect on it, they kind of come back and go, okay, you know what? There was some validity to what you guys were saying. And overall, their business ends up being better because of it.
I think the way you have to consider it is one of your responsibilities, probably your primary responsibility in a mastermind, is to have a relationship with the other people in the mastermind. So you know that person who needs their butt kicked, but needs it done in a slightly different way. Some people need it harder because they know they're being bad, and they are just being bad on purpose because it's just right now they're not into it. And they can handle it. You rip into them a little harder. Other people, if you know that they're going to take it hard, even that they'll get back to it. Kristen's idea of being like, listen, I love you, but you need to do this, this, and this, and you know you need to do this, this, and this. So get started.
Right. Because if you're just in a group with, yes men and yes women, it's not going to help you grow your business.
Yes, and if you want a yes man, just tell us $20 and I'll send you a tape saying yes.
Yes, you can. Of course you can. Yes, you can. That's very good.
Yes, sir.
So that's the thing. You want to find people that are not only open to accepting constructive criticism, but who can also give constructive criticism. Mm-hmm. That's super important.
I think honesty is the number one trait for someone in here. I find that more important than experience.
Right, because I think a lot of times, when you're putting things in front of the mastermind group, it's, I have an idea for this product or this service. Is this something that you think people would pay for? Is this, what do you think of this marketing content? What do you think of this podcast idea or this blog post I want to do? Or I'm going to run some Facebook ads like this. It's really to have a sounding board. Yeah. And if the people don't have the courage to tell you what they really think of it, then you're going to have some issues.
And I think to keep in mind, too, when you're doing this kind of a process with the mastermind, you're not taking your final piece of content to the group and showing them what you're going to do. You want to, the more complicated the idea is, let's say you're creating a whole new brand, you want your brainstormed ideas in front of them, not nearly polished, produced products, because you will be more defensive because you've worked a lot harder on it, and you'll be less likely to accept good criticism because, well, I've already paid an editor to go over the content.
Yeah, and I've kind of seen that, not so much in the masterminds that I'm in, but in a lot of the Facebook groups I'm in. Somebody will be like, hey, okay, here's my logo, and here are the 4 options, and what do you think? Pick the one you like the best. And then you just see comment after comment saying the font is not readable.
Which is probably the most common critique I've seen for logos, because one of the things people don't keep in mind for a logo is how it's going to be distributed in its most common format. And if it's something like a podcast, it's going to be a thumbnail on someone's phone or in iTunes on their computer, and it's going to be small. And it might look great at 1200 by 1200, but when you shrink it down, the font is not going to look as good.
But but then the person gets really defensive because they're like, no, I have these 4.
Yes.
Pick one of these 4.
Pick one of these 4. That's your choices.
And we're like, E, none of the above.
Yeah.
And, people don't want to hear that. Mm-hmm. So getting your mastermind involved in the early stages of new ideas can help you from spending a tremendous amount of time and falling in love with something and then having people go, not so much.
Because effort does turn into love when it comes to work, especially when it's work you care about.
All right. So let's, we've kind of talked about why you need one and the purpose of them. Let's talk about forming a mastermind. So if you're looking to form a mastermind, you can either form an online mastermind, which is what the ones that I am in are. They're online masterminds with people from all over the country. Or you can form local in-person masterminds. It depends on what works best for you. Yeah. So if you want to form an online mastermind, I would suggest that you take the lead on it and say, okay, I want to form a mastermind. I'm looking for people who are interested in doing the same thing. put together at least a rough outline that, okay, we're going to meet on Wednesday nights every other week in Google Hangouts. This is kind of the format that I want to use. I'm looking for people that do this.
And don't make the mistake of posting these in groups and expecting people to respond and be like, oh, me. When you're forming one, especially online, go through your groups. You know who you read the post of. You know who you respect. Approach them individually. These are people who are busy just like you are. Have the decency to treat them like an individual. Approach them and say, here's a mastermind I'm forming. Here are the basic rule structures that we can formalize once we get going. But this is how I see it working. And I would like you to join. And here's why I think you would be useful to the group.
Right. And I think that, I get asked to be in masterminds all the time.
Yeah.
Because, people see me post. They know that I've got experience with business. And it's very flattering to be put, in that position and be asked. So if you find people that, they're very active, they tend to give people really good advice, approach them.
Yeah.
But the more organized you are when you make that ask, the more likely it is that people are going to join.
Yes. Especially if they're busy. And, it's like a good rule of thumb is look for the people who answer people's questions. And they might answer them. It might not always be perfect, but, in an apparently honest way. Like someone asked this, they tell them the answer, just openly and freely. Those are the people you want in your masterminds because they're probably more likely to be able to give you the kind of feedback that you need in a mastermind group.
Right. And I think, the one thing that I would try to avoid is people who are not really in the startup phase yet. It is very hard to help someone and to get them to help you when they're still kind of in that thought stage of their business that they haven't really implemented anything yet. They're still kind of in the brainstorming stage.
Those are the people you mentor, not the people you mastermind with. And in my experience, working with people who aren't ready to launch because they're not quite sure on their idea yet, they have a tendency to the masterminds will have a tendency to have the opposite effect on them where they'll go, oh, all of these other people are achieving so much and I'm not achieving. And they will curl up and they will become less responsive over time. They'll probably do what is required in the group because they feel a relationship with people, but it will hurt them, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if you're going to do an in-person mastermind, you can kind of do the same thing that if you're going out and you're networking a lot, you've met people, who are helpful and who are not. Even if you're doing this locally, this is not a referral group.
No.
This is a business building group. And so you don't want to build it from the standpoint, well, who can I get referrals from?
No.
That's not the point. The point is to get people who are working in business, who are helpful, who are honest, and who are going to be active participants in your group. If you want to do a referral group, that's something completely different.
Yes.
And that's okay too.
Make a referral group, but don't call it a mastermind.
Right. So I think that there's, especially when I talk to people locally, a lot of people online get what a mastermind group is. But when you start talking to people who run local businesses, they kind of think it's like a BNI networking, referral sort of thing. And that's not really the purpose.
And that's one of the things too, if you're prepared when you approach them, you have your elevator pitch to explain it to them what it is. And let's be honest, if you're listening to a podcast, you're probably more apt and more comfortable to do it online. I think the benefits of being able to do it from your house and not to have to go out and meet and spend X number of dollars on top of whatever you're doing because you meet at a restaurant every couple of weeks. People online can be very helpful. Many of them have had many failures, which is a good thing. You want people who failed in your group because people who failed have learned something.
Well, and I think the bonus of doing it online as well if you get a pretty good national representation, I think that really helps you if you're trying to build your business nationally. Because the way that we approach things in New England is different than how you would approach somebody in the Midwest or the South.
Yeah, I have a little story on this. I was working with a website years ago, and they were trying to become sort of like a version of Yahoo that was focused on your hometown. And they were talking about scaling nationally, and I was trying to explain to them that not everyone throughout the United States lives in a town. And they thought I was being ridiculous, and they would hear nothing of it. But it was a real flaw with the thing, because some people, they identify with the county they're from. If they're around the border of another state, it's the bi-state or tri-state area. That's what they identify with. They don't always identify with the town they live in. Even if they live in a town, if it's really small, like my mom came from Farmersburg, and her sister for years lived in Prairiton. Those are pretty small towns. The person, even though they live in the town, might be more likely to identify with either a town closer to them or maybe just the whole county.
Right. So, it's kind of important to get those other perspectives, because it's funny because I'll talk to people who are from larger states, and, I say, well, here, I'm from a small state. We don't really care about counties because the state is so small. Yeah. And it's
we got rid of them years ago.
Right. And so for us, to go from Connecticut to Maine, which is, technically 3 states over, it's like a 4-hour drive. Yeah. And for some people, if they're in the middle of their state, it's a 10-hour drive just to get out of the state.
Yeah. And especially in Connecticut and Massachusetts and maybe even Rhode Island, I'm not so sure. And I don't know about Northern New England quite so much. People identify with the town they're from, always. I'm from Windsor. I'm from Hartford. If you start going, hey, people of the Hartford County, people are going to look at you like, what are you talking about? Which will be hard for them to do because you're online.
But it definitely gives you a really good perspective about how people in other regions of the country will perceive your sales pitch, your marketing ideas. So that's really kind of helped me to grow my business, because from being from New England, we're kind of straight shooters. We're kind of jerks sometimes,
Ah, shut up.
But, so it takes a little bit of a different sales tactic to sell to other parts of the country.
Yeah.
So having that national perspective has really helped me.
Almost definitely, yeah.
Once you've picked your group members, you want to make sure that you set up a couple things. So all the mastermind groups I've ever been in, we have a secret Facebook group for the members. And here's one thing that we haven't talked about. How many people do you want in your group? I personally think 6 max. And that's if you're allowing enough time for 6 people. So with both of the groups I'm in, I think they both have 6 people. So it takes us about an hour and a half on a call to get through everybody. And that's no matter, they both use different formats, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And we talk about the meeting formats, but it takes about an hour and a half to get through 6 people. So if I saw somebody online the other day. It's like, I'm forming a mastermind group and we're going to have 30-minute meetings and the cap is 6 people. And I responded, I'm like, I think that's too many.
For 30-minute meetings?
Yeah, you can't get through 6 people. I would maybe do 3 or 4. So it kind of depends on your time constraints. But I think anything more than 6 people, it starts to get a little bit unruly.
Especially after about 3 months where you're going to become friendly with everyone in your mastermind. You might not like them all because that one person's that always a thorn in your side, but you're still friendly with them because you have a relationship. It's almost kind of like family. And the problem is some of the time is going to be lost in those relationships. Well, okay, oh, you just came on. I know you did X this week, and I want to know about X, even though it's not related to business. And that's fine because part of it is a relationship thing. However, you have to understand that the longer you've been together, when someone has an exciting event in their week, even if it's not business related, it might take up more time than it should.
Yeah. So kind of keep that in mind. So you want to set up the Facebook group, make sure that it's secret so that you don't get like requests from people trying to join it. Invite everyone into the Facebook group. And then usually what we do is somebody will set up a Google Hangout. I think Google Hangouts work really well for masterminds.
Especially now that the links are permanent.
Right. So what we'll do is we will set up, I will actually go into a Google Hangout and then I will post the link in the mastermind group in a pinned post. And I'll put the next, 6 dates that we're meeting.
Yep.
And then what we do is we usually do like a Monday update. So even though we don't meet every week, we ask everybody to update, once a week in the group just to kind of let us know like what's going on between meetings. That also really helps speed up the meetings itself because you're not, if you meet every 2 weeks, you don't have to recap the entire 2 weeks because you've already shared a lot of what's going on so that we can really help you with what you're dealing with right now. So I think that helps. I do like the every other week format because that gives you some time to actually accomplish the things that you said you were going to do. I think that every week is too much. I'm actually in 2 different masterminds that meet on alternating Thursdays. So I do have a meeting every Thursday, but it's with a different group of people who give me a different type of feedback. So, being able to meet with each of those groups really helps I get a different perspective, which I think is a really good thing. I also think that once a month is not enough unless you're doing really extensive updating inside the Facebook group. Because then people have so much that they have to get you caught up on that you can't really help them. With whatever they're working on because you're all spending so much time recapping. Okay, so when you're looking for people, you want to make sure that they're going to make a commitment to the group. That's huge because I've seen other groups where people are really excited in the beginning and they really want to go and like, oh, well, all right, and I got to fit this into my schedule now. And we're really meeting every other week. Well, I've got this thing or I've got that thing or, and they don't really give the group priority.
Yeah. And I think sort of like clubs, you have to have kind of the bylaws of the group. And they are fundamentally what runs it. And they need to deal with circumstances like when a member gets booted. Maybe if they don't show up for like 2 times in a row, whatever the rules are going to be, make them that way. Maybe have the group vote on it if they don't show up 2 times in a row. And if they don't, then it's like, we're sorry, you're not ready at this point. We hope you get there. Or maybe that there's real stuff going on in their life and the group's like, no, we'll let them stay. Just try and keep us updated in the Facebook group. It depends on the group you're in, the people, whatever covenant you come up with together.
Right. And, the groups that I'm in, we usually take a little bit of a break around Christmas, because that's so hectic. You might want to say, hey, listen, we're going to take the month of July off because a lot of people are traveling during July. You can kind of set up a schedule like that. It doesn't have to be every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It may just be every 2 weeks when school's in session. So there's different ways that you can structure this so that everybody gets the time off that they need to, but you're still able to help each other out.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the format of the calls. Okay. So I'm currently in 2 different groups. One of the groups has someone in the hot seat every call. So basically what we do is everybody does a 5-minute update of what's going on with them. They might ask if they need help with something.
Yeah.
And then one person gets like 30 minutes in the hot seat where they're really giving detailed information about what they're working on, and we give them detailed feedback. And so that rotates through the members. So if there's 6 people, that means that every 6 weeks, you're in the hot seat. Okay. And so that's really good for people that are trying to make major strides, major progress. And everybody's kind of in that stage where they're launching something.
Yes.
It works really well for something like that because you get to give your quick update every week, but then every 6 weeks as you're progressing, you get more time.
And let me be clear here. For all of the people who create fictional content, who's always like, oh, would this work for, an author or an artist? This is the exact kind of format you want. And the reason is you are always launching products and you always need to be moving forward in that way. You maybe book 1 is done and you're working on book 2, but now you need that feedback. Oh, did you get your cover art ready? Did you submit it to your newsletter group to get their feedback from it? Do you want to submit it here so you can get our feedback from it? These are the kinds of things like if you launch products and if you deliver fictional content, that is actually all you do.
Yeah, I think that that's a perfect format for authors.
Yeah.
Because even if they're in the writing stages, it takes like 6 weeks to make some major progress with your written work or to develop a sales plan. But that's kind of good because even as you're going through launching your book, okay, is your launch group set up? Have you gotten people in for that? Do you have the people who are going to do the Amazon reviews for you when your book comes out? And so I think that that's a really good format.
Yeah.
So if you're in launch stage, if you're an author, that's a good format. My other group, we use a different format where everybody gets equal time each call.
Yeah.
And I actually run this other mastermind. So what I'll do is sometimes like if I think that people are kind of stalling out, or I think that they're not asking for enough help from the group, I'll actually change the format up a little bit and say, okay, instead of giving us an update, I want to know what's the one thing you're struggling with that we can help you with.
Yeah.
And I did that a couple weeks ago with the one that I run, and everybody really liked that because it got people kind of thinking again, like, okay, what am I stalled out on? What do I need help with? And so in that case, everybody gets 15 minutes every single time we meet.
Yeah.
And so that's really good for groups where everybody's they're not so much in launch mode at this point. They're either more in the product development stage or they have their products and services and they're just trying to sell them and get themselves out there and build up their brand.
Yeah.
So, I think both formats have their merits.
Yes.
It really depends on what your group wants to do.
And the format of your group might end up even being slightly more different. And that's okay because ultimately, once again, it comes to the covenant of the needs of the people who are involved. They all need to want to be moving further than where they are at.
Exactly. So if you're thinking about putting together a mastermind group, go out, start looking for people that you think would be a good match for your group. Put together a basic structure for how you think your group is going to work. Are you going to do meetings every other week? Are you going to meet twice a month? How are you going to figure out that structure? And then pitch it to them. Well, we're going to have a Facebook group that's secret. This is how we're going to meet. This is when we're going to meet. This is how often we're going to meet. These are the type of people that I'm looking to get into the group, and send a personal message.
Yep. And kind of rate the people that you want. If you have 6 people, make a list of 10 and have little notes that you're not sharing out with them, but that you know why you want them in the group, and sort of rank them in order of desire of having them, and you rank it however you want to. There's no correct way to rank it. But once you have it, approach the first person If they say yes, great. Tell them, hey, these are some of the types of people I'm looking for. I know you're really good at this, but I'm looking for some people who are good here or there or somewhere else. And get their feedback because they might know good people too. And sometimes you might get some better members, so as you're filling out the group, all of the people who are now in it are collaborating to help bring in that next person. And if they know someone who's on your list that you want for something specific and they already have a relationship, have them ask.
Right, exactly. So that's the thing is you can actually partner up with someone that you really want in the group and then see if they know anyone that they think would be a good fit. And I think that actually works really well.
I know that's one of the things that I've been given feedback on and I don't do interview-based shows, but for getting interviews, they say it's always better to have someone who knows them ask. So typically for people who do interview-based podcasts, when they finish the podcast and they've stopped recording, they thank the person who's there, obviously. And then they just say, hey, if you happen to know anyone else who'd like to be on this podcast you think would be